Welcome back to the program, everyone. Let's get to head now to our very first conversation this morning as we look at the state of the nation from the lens of those in the opposition. Mr. Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour joins us live on the program, former Labour Party governorship candidate. He joins us live here from Lagos. Mr. Vivour, I'm not sure what your new designation is in the ADC, but let's begin with what has played out in very, very recent times. The abductions, the kidnaps, the shutdown of schools, as we hear and see in Niger and Kebbi states. I'm just wondering, from the opposition camp and your standpoint, what exactly are you seeing and hearing?
Well, for us, it reflects a failure in this government. The fundamental responsibility of government is protecting life and property. And experiencing and seeing these things all start to increase, or maybe just the media reporting it a lot more, because there's been a lot of killings all across the Middle Belt. There's been a lot of abductions that have been happening before Donald Trump made the statement that he did. And what is very painful to see is that we have a government that has not really valued human life. They've always solved for the next election. And this did not just start now. Far back as 2018, 19, 22, 2022, 2021, where herdsmen were terrorizing most of the Southwest, the current president was quiet. He's known to have gone on TV and said, where are the cows, when he went to condole with Pafasoronti. So there's been silence to the pain and the wailing of Nigerians that have been plagued with this herdsmen and this terrorist killing and actions. And also, you see that continue to government up until when Donald Trump came out and said what he said, which still holds true, because, again, they are solving for the next election. We've not heard or seen the president be so responsive or communicating, whether it's just performative, but we've not seen it. I recall when there were killings in Benue, and the president was supposed to go there and condole with them. On a visit that was supposed to be a visit for mourning, we had people lined up on the streets praising him as he came in, and then to later hear that he could not make it to the location. Number one citizen could not make it to the location of these killings. Just goes to show the value that this government puts on the Nigerian life. And that is the thing that needs to fundamentally change, because it reflects on the resources that are spent. It reflects on how you treat people that have failed to protect the Nigerian life. Just recently on this show, you were talking about the Kebbi government, talking about how the military ordered withdrawal of troops before kidnappers came in. This has been going on in Taraba, in Gombe, in several states. Yet, who has been brought to account?
All right.
Right? Who has been brought to account? And you see, you even look at the quality in the decision-making that appointed the Minister of Defense. This is a man that has an EFCC case. This is a man that woefully failed in ensuring security in Zamfara. And you see that the decision-making, again, they're not solving for the well-being or the security of the nation. They are solving for the next election.
Yes.
And this is what's determining who they are appointing into what, how they handle these things. And until Donald Trump started talking about it, there was no spotlight on it.
Yes.
The deaths of Nigerians were met with silence from the government.
Yes.
Right? So it's a wholesome failure that betrays the fact that this government came in to enrich themselves and for position, not in the interest of the people.
All right. So it means you're not buying into all of the moves by Mr. President. He had to boycott the G20 meeting in SA. He had to also shut down some other international trips just to be present.
Why
here in the
did
country.
He have to take a foreign president to put him on the tools to start doing things like this?
And that leads me to my next question, really, Mr. Rhodes-Vivour. So this decision from the U.S. president to perhaps intervene, which we can see that it has changed the body language of the current administration. I'm not sure which side of the divide you stand, but I know you're in the opposition. So do you support the fact that indeed we need the help, we need the intervention of the U.S. and the U.S. President, Mr. Donald Trump, to come to Nigeria and help us solve this problem? Is that where you stand?
We need our government to sit up and do their job. Their job is protect lives and property. It is an absolute disgrace that a foreign president had to make these statements for them to start to sit up. We want to see less performative action and more real actions, holding the military accountable for their failures, investing heavily in the military, investing in intelligence gathering, ensuring that the president is empowering the military, creating exercises and incentives that boost their morale, right? Not sending people to the war front completely, they are not armed properly, ensuring that we have proper intelligence to marshal our troops. And this is something that we need to see. Cannot just be performative, cancelling a visit here, cancelling a visit there. The quality of our ministers, the quality of our people that are gathering information, we need to start to deliberately, intentionally highlight who is financing the terrorism. How are they getting intelligence? What is our own intelligence structure? Why do they seem that they are always a step ahead of us? What level of surveillance are we doing? In today's day, we have drones. We need to invest in that to survey, get information, and be ahead of them, right? How are their supply lines being managed? How do we break those supply lines? These are intentional things we expect a government to do. It would be a disgrace as an African, as a proud African, as a proud Nigerian, that as a people, a great nation that we can be with all the potential and intelligence that we have to depend on somebody else to come and protect us. A people that have gone through enslavement, a people that have gone through colonialism, they don't understand that they need to have a robust vision and strategy to secure their borders. So it's a failure on this government, and it highlights their lack of care for the Nigerian life. That's what has just been brought to the fore. But right now, I stand to say that the government must step up. It's time to put their selfish interests aside, time to put aside their focus on the next election, on destroying the opposition, on waging a war that is using violence against the opposition, right? To actually start to address these issues and focus on putting the people first and uniting the nation. You cannot run a tribalistic, bigoted system to electioneer your way into office and then expect people will come together and rally behind you. Now is the time to start reaching hands out, standing against bigotry, uniting people. We have in Lagos, I'm sure you saw the NURTW threatening death on opposition parties. They need to step up to that plate so that everybody can be united and focus on putting people first. These are things that we need to see, not people constantly taking pleasure in the destruction of opposition. Meanwhile, your people are dying. Mothers are crying. Whole villages are being mass buried.
Mr.
And yet we have silence from you up until Donald Trump started to speak. So we need to see the government step up to their responsibility.
All right, Mr. Rhodes-Vivour. So if you, let me allow you, what will be your postulation? So kidnappings has been on the rise. Mass abduction is what I like to call it recently. And then we've seen the release. I don't know the language. The first language I heard was they escaped. That was a bit curious for children and all of that to escape. But the language is freed. Kwara, the church incident in Kwara, that 2 people were killed, the 38 that were abducted have now been free. So that is some breath of fresh air. That's some good news. What are your postulations as to the reason for the recent surge in mass abduction?
Well, strategically, some have opined that abducting so many children will make either a foreign military operation harder because they cannot just unilaterally bomb the place, right? So they're using them as human shields. Some have postulated that. Another way of looking at it might be with this new attention that Donald Trump has brought to this particular scenario, the media is publicizing it and reporting on these incidents a lot more. Similar situation with COVID. As you remember, the media focused on it and it had national attention and global attention. And then at a point, they decided we're not going to focus on it anymore. It could be the spotlight has been put on this situation, and now the government is having to stand up and answer to it. It's not as if these things have not been happening. It's just the government has been lackadaisical about it up until Donald Trump's commentary on it. So that is my opinion. I think it's either strategically human shields, the media also paying more attention to it, or the media being liberated to speak on it. The government also engaging this particular situation as opposed to just sweeping it under the carpet.
There's also the talk about the speed of rescue. In fact, I've heard all kinds of conspiracy theories, but since it's out there, let's just speak to it. I think it was one of the fire shades that put it together. And I think the big question here is as to the quick release of these children, which we're very excited about. Some are saying, oh, it's part of strategy to ward off the United States Army from coming in. I don't think a lot of people, I don't know whether you answered the question as to whether you would like the United States Army to come in and do what they said they would do or not, because we know there's a wider interest and we don't know the scale of that wider interest. So that's why everybody's a bit hesitant to that help, except maybe the people who are at the forefront of, at the receiving end, who, wherever the help is coming from, is inconsequential. Whatever long-term interest is none of their business. They just want to stay alive. So my question would be to you on this talk about the speed of recovery of this, or rescue of the children, and then the bigger question of what has happened to the people who abducted them.
Well, the government in relation, see, we have a situation where there's a credibility crisis with this government. They've governed with a lot of propaganda, so it allows a lot of room for conspiracy theories. I am happy that children that just woke up in the morning to go to school and experience this kind of terror are free. I'm happy about that. How that happened, we cannot confidently answer that. Whether people have come out and talk about paying ransom to these terrorists, to these bandits, who then use these funds to even further strengthen their base, strengthen their ammunition, strengthen their supply chain, and that is not in our interest. I feel that it's important that there are consequences to engaging in this activity, and the government must handle its military with all sense of seriousness and all sense of purpose. The Nigerian life must start to be held with such value that it's not about tribe. The fact that you're a Nigerian and your life can be assaulted like this, there must be severe consequences to pay. Until we get to that kind of mindset, these things will continue to happen. Terrorists will continue to be emboldened, and we'll continue to see things happen like this. So these are some of the issues. All right. In relation to, I think you talked about that, and you talked about what has happened to them so far. We've heard reports, we've seen reports where they're saying that they've gotten or arrested some people, but then you also see a number of these terrorists wearing the uniform of former generals that they kidnapped and killed, and these same terrorists are negotiating or having meetings with the government.
All right.
I don't think that's a good strategy. I don't think that's a long-term strategy that will end up in our favor.
Let me squeeze in maybe 2 or 3 questions in one as quickly as I can. So, for those in the ruling party, Mr. Rhodes-Vivour, they say that you and your friends in the opposition are perhaps behind some of these acts. I mean, I was listening to Ojuzo Kalu yesterday, Senator Ojuzo Kalu, on our flagship political program. He says those of you in the opposition are perhaps behind some of these kind of attacks, because he says that we see some of these kind of occurrences during a year or two to the elections, as it is happening now. This has played out before. How do you respond to that? And then my second question would be, if perhaps Mr. President is listening to you this morning and he decides to extend his hand of leadership to you. You are young, you're vibrant, you're smart, you're intelligent, Mr. Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour. Come on board and let's get to feel you help solve some of these challenges as we face as a people. Are you willing and available?
So the first question is a very, very disgraceful position for a politician to take, especially a politician from the APC government. It's extremely disgusting to hear, because I recall in 2015, these were the same people that went to call for the not only prosecution, but for America to come and invade and get involved in the situation in Nigeria by themselves. The situation was not a quarter as dire as we find it today. And I'm talking from the economic angle, the value of our currency, the value of our business, the situation of inflation, to the security crisis, to even the attempt to destroy the opposition. I only wonder if the APC was the opposition today and the PDP were sending thugs to destroy any meeting that they were gathering at or trying to have, I can only imagine what they would have done, what they would have called the American government to do. So these are a disgraceful set of unpatriotic Nigerians that actually started this trend of getting a foreign national to come and have a say, or try and, I don't want to use the word invade, but actively come and step into the situation of another sovereign national. We then question the sovereignty of our country. They were the agents behind that. That's the first thing. And then secondly, you have not seen any opposition government or any opposition leader coming out to go and do anything that's similar to what the APC did when just before they took power, with Barack Obama in charge, with the situation of Bring Back Our Girls, campaigning, going all the way to see the president in America and and the government officials to put pressure on Goodluck Jonathan's government. You've not seen any of them do that. For the most part, they've shown themselves to be patriotic. They've shown themselves to be statesman-like.
Nigerians will argue that you're not doing enough.
So I say that again?
Nigerians will argue that those of you in the opposition are not doing enough. You're not united enough, and you're not pushing or mounting pressure on the current administration.
I can completely understand why Nigerians will say that, because we find ourselves in an extremely tricky situation. We find ourselves having to deal with external forces actively destroying opposition parties and having to fight that, at the same time come together as opposition parties to decide how we're going to move forward. So that's what we're doing. And there's a lot more to do. There's a whole lot more to do if we're going to rescue this nation, and everybody has to put their head down and get to work. So lastly, on the Kalu quotation, I say that the APC should stop projecting themselves on us. That there are unpatriotic Nigerians that have links to terrorism, that were threatening that they would destroy this country if they don't win elections. They should stop projecting on us. That's what they do. They're unpatriotic Nigerians. We are patriotic Nigerians. We want to see Nigeria that works for the people. We want to solve for the problems that affect Nigerians, not just the next election.
You have not answered my question.
The second question.
Yes, exactly. I was going to come to that. I see go ahead, please, and answer that.
Sorry, remind me your second question.
I mean, I was asking that if Mr. President is listening to you this morning.
Yes. You see, the issue is the why. Your why matters. When a president comes in and says, "Now statistics we go chop," that does not show any vision or understanding of the problems. That talked about how he would just randomly recruit youth into the army and give them gari and corn to eat, as though we're in the 40s or the 50s, without understanding the time and seasons. That why would always hover over that government, because they did not come in to solve the problems of Nigerians. You see, when you want to solve the problems of Nigerians, you have to take time to understand those problems. And it will be coming out of you, not just the challenges, but the solutions. So you would go to debates, you will engage people, you will talk about this knowledge that you have. When you say now statistics we go chop, it shows that you were just concerned about the electioneering, not the governing, not governance. You are fantastic at the politics, but you are a complete failure at the governance. Now, I will not involve myself in a situation where leaders did not prepare for governance. to come in and fail at protecting people, fail in ensuring that our economy is solid, right? Fail in providing opportunities for the youth of this country, right? All we can do is continue to hold the government accountable, talk about ideas, talk about potential solutions. It's for them to adopt some of these solutions, and it is for them to stop focusing on the next election and start focusing on making the lives of Nigerians better. No matter what tribe you are, no matter where you reside in this country, the life of Nigerian must be precious. And that is what they must start to do now. And that's what the opposition party must continue to hammer, so that they understand that this is important and they'll be held accountable for every life lost in this country.
All right, Mr. Rhodes-Vivour, as we begin to wind down, a couple of things I would like you to address. Maybe if we have time, we'll touch on the economy briefly. But before that, staying on national security, if you go online, Nigerians will always look for, we humor ourselves a lot, no matter how deep or how challenging the situation is.
It's a coping mechanism.
Okay, so it's a coping mechanism. Okay, so you can see now a lot of people, especially Christians, showing content now where they're not carrying Bible and guns, Bible and machete, Bible and all of that, saying, look, since it has come to this point, self-defense is, in fact, I even heard a preacher from the South saying, look, the northern brothers should protect themselves, according to what he said. So you're seeing that people are beginning to lose hope. And maybe there's a nuance around self-protection for what they consider the balance of terror. If you come into my house and you know I have a gun, you will know that it's a 50-50. One of us may go down. So that will make you think twice. So that's where, do you think we should begin to have that conversation, especially in parts of the North where maybe we should begin to consider people arming themselves, not to just get killed, or this may just break down the entire system and resort to anarchy?
Yes, I don't even think it's just about parts of the North. You've seen abductions happening in Kwara, in Ogun State over the weekend. You saw some kidnappings come down. This thing is coming all the way down. It's not just about the North. When government continues to fail continuously, the people must take matters into their own hands. I've said this thing several times. From the destruction of institutions, destruction of the perception of the integrity of institutions, people start to lose hope in government. And you might feel that you are winning on the short term, but on the long term, people are going to have to take matters into their own hands. If they do not believe, if the people do not have a unified collective belief that they will get justice in the judiciary, if they do not collectively believe that the police will work in their interests and protect their lives and property, if they believe that the military will come and take away their protection or withdraw troops, and then shortly after terrorists will come in and kidnap and kill people, at some point, the people have to take a stand. It is wickedness to ask people to just remain helpless when the government fails them. The whole idea of government and this social contract is that we're giving up some of our rights so that you can provide certain services and protect lives and property. Now, if government is failing to meet up with their side of the contract, then the people must take matters into their own hands. How many people have to die before we understand this fact has to become a reality? Until the government steps up, right? So I believe that this is a conversation that we must start to have. And I mean, people are not going to wait for the government to start buying generators when government not providing light. People do not wait for government to start before they start drilling borehole when government was not supplying them water.
Are you saying,
right?
Mr. Gbadebo, Rhodes-Vivour, so let's be clear. Are you saying that, because my question is this a conversation that government should start considering? Because government is always afraid of anarchy. And are you saying that if you were in their position, because you also want power, you would not mind legislating about self-defense?
If I was in their position, my focus would be on the well-being of the Nigerian life, and this problem will never have gotten this far because I will not be focused solely on the next election. I'll be focused on protecting my people. My people get hurt, I'll be there, so people will know that the government is taking these things seriously. not just with empathy, but with strength. So I will not answer that question in that regard. I'm talking about this situation now because of the failure of government that we found ourselves in, right? And in this failure, if the government cannot sit up, then they start considering licensing firearms. But then you now ask yourself, if the same government is withdrawing protection from people before terrorists come in, will they license firearms? You see, the way they've run this thing has just left so much room for doubt and conspiracy and a lack of belief in their credibility as a government, right? And that's a very dangerous precipice to be as a people in a country.
All right, before I let you go, let's talk economy for a moment. And the focus will be what Alhaji Atiku Abubakar has raised. FIRS adding express payments as TSA collecting agent, onboarding them as they expand their responsibility. And now this has generated a lot of talk. He did an expansive write-up on his X handle, questioning the transparency and the credibility of the process. For him, middlemen, why? Because he's seeing it as a conduit for politically exposed persons who want to capture the state or state capture. That is his postulation as far as this issue is concerned, and he's asking for transparency. Alpha Beta was mentioned somewhere in the mix. What do you make of this new arrangement by the FIRS, which has responded that they should leave them to do their work, they should not politicize tax collection in Nigeria?
You know, we've been talking about this Alpha Beta situation in Lagos for a very long time. People that are consultants are supposed to consult. And if you have to pay them a fee, you pay them a fee, and that should be the end of it. They should not be constantly taking chunks out of IGR when you have situation of security problems, you have situation of poor investments in our education, in our healthcare, but billions are going to consultants consistently every month. And what we have seen now is the alphabetization of Nigeria. And this was to be expected. I mean, people have talked about this, that this was bound to happen. Because you see a situation where this entity has hovered over the finances of Lagos for over 2 decades. Meanwhile, it is the LIRS that is doing majority of the work. So why would consultancies continue to extract so much money from our IGR when they can just give advice and let the LIRS that is being paid a salary as civil servants do the work? Why do we constantly need middlemen? And then they will then be at the helm of collecting some whatever percentage of resources from IGR when we are constantly borrowing money, we're constantly looking for ways to balance our budget. We should be trying to trim fat, but this is what we are adding right now at such a time in this country. It's completely disgraceful. The level of greed of the people in government is just something I cannot understand. And I believe that as people, we must stand against this.
All right.
We must ensure that the FIRS is equipped to do their job, right? And if you need consultants can come on a temporary basis. They give advice. It's just like you employ McKinsey or BCG. They don't come in and give you advice and then collect a chunk out of your profit for the next 20 years.
All right.
And those are the best consulting firms in the world.
It's always interesting to listen to you politicians talk, especially on this side of where you are now, this side of the divide where you are now. And then things will perhaps get to switch gears when you perhaps belong to the other part. But we must anchor at this point with you. Thank you indeed for your time on the program. Former Labour Party governorship candidate here in Lagos State, Mr. Gbadebo,
I'll say something to that. You know, you have to look at the antecedents of people. I've been consistent about this government, especially in Lagos. So switching gears is not something that I can associate with me. I get into office, I'll do my best. I stand by the principles that I've stood on for the last over a decade that I've been in politics now.
All right.
So you can be sure of that.
Yeah, thank you so much. We wish you all the best. We thank you for these assurances. We wish you all the best, you and your new party now, the ADC, and our message to them is that perhaps you can step up a bit more with your pressure on the ruling party.
I agree with you.
Thank you so much.
I agree with you 100%.
All right. Well, this is the morning brief. Let's get to switch gears now and talk about something that played out 4 days ago, November 20, the landmark and historic judgment delivered by Justice James Omotosho on Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, which has had to get a lot of Nigerians talking right here in the country and across the diaspora. We're back in just a moment. Please stay with us.